Reading for Life is a mentoring program for children between the ages of 13 and 18 who are involved in the criminal justice system. We work with them by teaching them a set of virtues or a virtue theory, and we work through that and have them internalize that by reading young adult fiction. When a child is arrested, communities mostly think of those kids as criminals, and they start to process them as such. Reading for Life takes a very different stance. We believe when a child has committed a crime, they've actually just had a breakdown of good decision making, and that they need that, and it's the opportunity that the community also needs to get involved, where maybe other sorts of structures in their lives, maybe their families or their schools or even their local neighborhoods, may have not given them those opportunities to develop a good set of ethics or virtues. We like the opportunity and think of it as the opportunity for us to get involved so that we can help them course correct their own lives. When you ask a child, why did you do this act? Anybody that's ever been involved with children know that when you say, why did you do this? The answer is, I don't know. And I don't think that's actually true. It's just that we have never helped them by developing a language in which they can talk about what they've done and actually justify why it's right or why it's wrong. And so when you introduce the virtues and start talking about the virtues with these kids, it's almost like we've given them a language, an ethical language, in which to say, have you made a prudent choice? Was that just? Are you exhibiting charity? Is the loyalty that you have to your friends more important than the loyalty you have to yourself? These are the conversations that we're having when we're giving them that moral language that they can talk through and we can teach them to use when we're not in the room with them. It's really exciting. The virtues are very exciting because even as an adult, we can use these frameworks. But Reading for Life specifically uses these virtues to reduce juvenile recidivism rates. And we do. We're highly successful.
You have to learn to be faithful to the right people, because as in my situation was, I was faithful to the wrong people, which got me in trouble. My mindset and with those people just didn't work well together. It was taking me to the wrong place. Before I had a 3.8 cumulative GPA, I just wasn't doing my work. I wasn't really keeping up with it. I thought it was gonna be just like an English class at school, like where everybody takes turns reading, but as we went along, it was actually way better than I expected. I learned a lot of things. It benefited me a whole lot. Since it's a smaller group, everybody's able to interact with each other. We're more involved with the reading, everything. It helped me establish what I had back, doing all my work again, keeping up, turning on time, just the little things, and helped me get my GPA back up. Oh, my mentors, they were so interactive. Every day I went in there, every day they will have a nice, good attitude. Like they're always, never in that class will be quiet. They'll always be talking, get us real active. Even like some days, when people don't have good days, they'll make me want to get involved. Like hey, today's gonna be a good day. It was just real nice. It's a lot better than what you're probably gonna expect. It's the same for me. I expected it not to be as good, and then where it really came out was way better than I thought. Like you learn a lot of things from it that'll benefit you in life.
As a teenager, I started Reading for Life not wanting to be there at all. And I definitely learned that I can come back, like from rock bottom, you can only go up. And I think if I wouldn't have been in Reading for Life, I would have missed out on so much. I don't know if I would have reoffended, but I think my friend choice and my actions would definitely have reflected not going to Reading for Life. My perspective coming from a graduate of Reading for Life was huge. Everybody was like, whoa, they understood that I was in their shoes before too. They're not really afraid to say anything. They're okay to tell you, and they want you to know like what they're going through. They learn so much, especially about the virtues, that I think their decision making is incredibly altered. And it's funny because a lot of students come back to like temperance, which is self-control. And they really realize that that's a huge one. And so each week, once a week, we do what virtuous thing did you do this week and what not so virtuous thing did you do this week. And they journal about it. And we never read it. But, it's interesting because students really get to think like their life put into the virtues and what they're doing right and what they're doing probably really wrong. There was one student, and he was really, really enjoyable to have in our group. He was just a very sweet kid, definitely loved the attention, and so it was really fun. But I think it was really interesting because he did have a family with a past of being in the system, older brothers, older siblings, just kind of in and out of the system. And we got into an in-depth conversation one day about how he didn't want to be like them, and that he realized that this was his second chance. It was really heartwarming to see that, Reading for Life gives that to people, and people understand that this is it, and I think people can take into account how they really want to live their life after they've done Reading for Life. If you are able to take a book, talk about virtues and connect it to the real world, it would be, a world of difference. I think students would actually enjoy reading too. Definitely people do change and people do realize, they made a mistake and they're not going to do it again.
When I refer a child to Reading for Life, it's a case I'm not preparing for court. So I don't have to do the interviewing work or the report writing that I would do for a case that's going to be in front of the judge. So that right there frees up a lot of time. For every child that comes through the system, we spend probably an hour through an interview and then another hour, sometimes more, writing reports, gathering background information and sharing that with the court. So if we can send them to Reading for Life, then all of that paperwork, all that time-consuming process is something that we don't have to do. As probation officers, that frees us up for other crisis situations and other clients who really do need the supervision that we have to give them. I think it's great that the Reading for Life program is actually in our building. It's been really helpful for me to be able to complete a referral. Once we make that referral process, there's paperwork that gets done. But then sometimes there's a lot more information that I need to share about that child, about the challenges the family has, or language barriers, or transportation, or scheduling issues, things that you just can't put down on a paper referral. So when I have the opportunity to walk down the hall and meet with the coordinators and say, hey, I just sent you a referral, but these are the issues that this family's going to face, we can deal with those problems right off the bat and help them be more successful. There are a lot of kids who kind of have already proven themselves before they even get to the initial appointment, and we can tell that they're not going to need a lot of supervision from probation or a lot of programs from the court that makes them do certain things. They've already taken that upon themselves. So a diversion program like this really does give them an opportunity to prove themselves without the court mandating things in their life and making them jump through all the hoops. It's been a great resource for our county and for our families. It really does help get the parents on board when they hear that we're working together and that we're going to help you with your child, as opposed to presenting it as another requirement or another hoop for them to jump through. It really shows them that we're kind of all on the same team and hopefully working to keep their child out of trouble.
Reading for Life is a mentoring program for children between the ages of 13 and 18 who are involved in the criminal justice system. We work with them by teaching them a set of virtues or a virtue theory, and we work through that and have them internalize that by reading young adult fiction. The biggest barrier that I see is that people really believe that because we use books as the catalyst for conversation, that somehow the reading comprehension level of the child is the biggest barrier, and that is not true. When kids are referred to our system, they're given a short reading comprehension level test, and we sort them into light, moderate, and heavy readers. So we meet them where they are, and there are plenty of books that are written for younger readers. So reading comprehension is not a huge issue. Reading is the catalyst for teaching these sets of ethics. And so we can find anything that we have to use in order to have those conversations. Reading for Life takes a very different stance. We believe when a child has committed a crime, they've actually just had a breakdown of good decision making. and that they need that. And it's the opportunity that the community also needs to get involved, where maybe other sorts of structures in their lives, maybe their families or their schools or even their local neighborhoods, may have not given them those opportunities to develop a good set of ethics or virtues. We like the opportunity and think of it as the opportunity for us to get involved so that we can help them course correct their own lives.
I'm executive director at the St. Joseph Probate Court and Juvenile Justice Center. Obviously our job is to hold kids accountable, but our job isn't to put kids away, to put an indelible mark on their life, to punish. The job, the idea, the rationale of the juvenile justice system is rehabilitation. What does that mean? Trying to help kids find the right track. If the public doesn't think that these kids who are caught up in the juvenile justice system think every bit as much as you or I or anyone else who has a college education or is a grown-up has wrestled with and cares about these issues, I think this program will make you think differently. That's a good use of our time, our energy, our resources. And if it just helps us appreciate that, hey, what's going on in this teenager's head? Usually you think there's not much. There's a lot going on there, and this program draws it out. These things matter to these kids, and finding an effective way to talk about it with their peers and with really good grown-ups at the same time makes a difference in their lives, just like it makes a difference in your life and mine.
We usually refer first-time offenders or low-risk offenders to Reading for Life, and it's an alternative, like a diversion program. Instead of going through the court process and monitoring them through probation, we give them a chance to prove themselves, but they still have some accountability. I've had several kids who really like the program. Parents are obviously really excited that they don't have to go to court or pay fees or fines, so that's a huge advantage to the program. I think one of my most memorable students actually went through the program when he was probably 15 for shoplifting, and he went through the program. And when he was first referred to Reading for Life, I explained to him that you would either do community service work or the reading program. And he begged to do community service in any way possible. He wanted to do anything but read a book. He shared with me that he didn't even realize how much he could enjoy reading because he had never really been pushed to do that before. And then became a junior mentor and kind of worked with the other kids. But he was really able to reach the kids in a different way because they hear things from him and realize he was in the same situation some of them were in. So he really, spoke to them in a way they understood. He really turned things around at school and was successful with his grades, with his attendance, something he'd never really done before. So for the first time, a kid who really didn't have much in the way of prospect had a lot of success and a lot of hope, and he was making himself proud, making his parents proud. When we break it down session by session or week by week, they realize they're able to get through the program, they're able to accomplish something, and they really do have a lot of pride once they're done. A lot of kids make mistakes, we get that. But in order for them to kind of prove that they don't need the court in their life, this is a really good way for them to have some accountability and to complete the program and to still find that success without having a bunch of requirements and things kind of forced upon them by the court.
I think they just need a chance, and they just need somebody to listen to them. Just having a mentor, somebody who's going to listen to you and kind of help guide you for those 10 weeks, I think that makes a huge difference for them, just having somebody older that's just there to listen. It's the change in mindset of the kids and knowing that you're always going to have tough choices to make, but here's this guide that we can give you, the virtue theory, that kind of helps you figure out what to decide and how to decide, what's best to do. And I think that's the best part about this program, that they really start to think about their life choices. Basically, the way it works is the kids get to choose what community service they want based on the books that we're reading. I think it kind of really hits home to them how important it is to work and help out the community without actually looking for any sort of reward for it. It's something that they themselves thought of, and it's connected to work that they were already doing based, like, reading the book, or connected to discussions that we've had for the past 7 or 8 weeks about helping people or communities, or what do you do with people less fortunate? Or talking about justice in societies, even that helps, rather than just them having to go and do it because a judge told them to. Or you don't realize how much kids have in them until you spend so much time with them and you're like, you guys are brilliant. I think a lot of times they just don't have anybody to talk to it about, but they have some really smart things to say. One of them, his parents had been through a divorce and he was finding it really tough. And so that was kind of affecting his behavior a little bit. And then one day we were just talking about, I think we were talking about making mistakes and how do you forgive somebody or something like that. And all of a sudden he was just like, well, don't you need love? Isn't that the most important thing? And I was like, what? Because me and my co-mentor, we were talking about like, oh, you need courage and you need strength and blah, blah, blah. And neither of us thought about love at all. I don't know why it never occurred to us. And he's like, well, yeah, because like you need love, right? Like I screwed up big time, but my parents still love me and they told me it was okay and they helped me. And we were just like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. And it was just like the perfect answer. And he was like, if they didn't love me when I was going through this tough time, I don't know what I would have done. I probably wouldn't be in this program. After being in Reading for Life, I realized there are no bad kids. It's honestly their circumstances that make them the way they are. And if you give them a chance, they're going to be okay.
Reading for Life is a mentoring program for children between the ages of 13 and 18 who are involved in the criminal justice system. We work with them by teaching them a set of virtues or a virtue theory, and we work through that and have them internalize that by reading young adult fiction. The virtues come from 2 different sources, right? The first that's important is Aristotle. I mean, he is the preeminent Greek philosopher. From him comes the virtues of justice, prudence, temperance, and fortitude. He wrote those out actually in the Nicomachean Ethics, which Nicomachus was his son. And so this was a father's advice to his son about how to have a good life. Fast forward a couple of centuries, and we also rely on the work of Thomas Aquinas. He believed that Aristotle's virtues were the right direction, but he added 3 of his own. And Reading for Life uses those as fidelity, hope, and charity. When we put these 7 virtues together, what's really exciting is we take those 7 and we go back to how Aristotle instructed his son to use them with something called the golden mean. So it's not enough to be a loyal person, which we define as fidelity, loyal, right? Because if you think of it in the mind of a teenager between the ages of 13 and 18, loyalty can be to an abusive boyfriend. Loyalty can also be to a gang culture, right? So it's not about using fidelity to its extreme. It's about creating levers and measuring them all in moderation. If you think about one of our virtues, which is fortitude, which we defined as courage or bravery, all right, or being the rock in a storm. Well, that's a beautiful idea, but being too courageous, well, it leads to risky behavior. So you have to make choices, prudent choices, one of our other virtues, when you're talking about using fortitude. So it's not necessarily teaching them to be hopeful people. It's teaching them to be hopeful people while they're also thinking about justice. When Aristotle proposed this to his son, it really was under the guise of, what does it mean to have a good life? It was an instruction manual to have a good life. And when you turn these things around on a teenager and you say, and you introduce virtues with that question, what does it mean to have a good life? Then you've stopped telling them what to do, and they start their own journey towards, what do I want out of the life that I have?